$114 million. That's how much Justin Trudeau just spent of your tax dollars on top of the hundreds of millions of dollars he's already spent on this issue to pay for even more hotels and social welfare payments for people who are illegally entering the country from upstate New York and then claiming asylum in Canada. Now, Justin Trudeau tweeted #welcome to Canada. He, has done nothing to stop the issue, to close the loophole in the agreement that we have with the United States that would prevent this from happening. Of course, he's done nothing to deal with that. All he's done is keep spending your money. Now, we have a process in Parliament that allows opposition MPs like myself to call ministers to committee, to hold them to account, to answer questions before we vote on this type of spending. Now, I've been trying to force the Minister of Immigration to come to our committee to answer questions about this for a long time now. He was scheduled to come to our committee today to do this. He showed up 20 minutes late, and the Liberals were trying to delay getting him there because, of course, he didn't want to answer any questions from me. I want you to watch the exchange that I had with him as I try to get answers on why they possibly would want to spend this amount of money instead of trying to fix their mistakes. Watch what happened as I asked them the tough questions. They didn't sit back. They tried to silence me, which is what they try to do over and over again to anybody who wants to speak the truth to their mistakes and failures. Thank you. Ministers, it's my understanding based on statements that both you and the Prime Minister have made that it's the opinion of your government that the Safe Third Country Agreement still applies. Is that correct?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. So what we're here today to do is to examine the supplementary estimates. That's where you're coming to us to ask for the committee to vote in favor of the big line item in here, which is $114 million to pay for housing and social services for people who have illegally entered the country from upstate New York and have subsequently claimed asylum in Canada. Is that's what you're asking us to do today, is to vote in favor of that expenditure?
What we're asking for is the money that is required for those individuals who have claimed asylum in Canada, that they are entitled under Canadian law to due process, and while that process is taking place, that we would provide them with temporary shelter.
Okay, so I think what we're confused about, and many Canadians are confused about, is that on one hand you say that the Safe Third Country Agreement, or the agreement that we have with the United States that essentially says that you can't claim asylum in one country if you do it in the other, applies, but then you're coming to us in a very large deficit situation while you're increasing taxes on Canadians on things like the carbon tax to vote in favor of spending $114 million on hotels and social welfare payments who, if they had entered the country legally, would not be able to claim asylum. So basically what you're asking us to do is to vote in favor of spending $114 million on hotels and social welfare payments for people who have reached upstate New York. Is that correct?
No, it's not. Actually, what we are asking.
So you don't want us to vote in favor of $114 million for illegal border crossers, or you do? I'm just like, what are you here to do? Like, we're all confused.
I would like to provide an answer to your question, if I may.
Well, first of all, I think you've provided a lot of confusion to Canadians with this. I'm going to try a different approach. You've got this request in front of us, and Canadians are watching. Do you think that it is fair to spend $114 million when you've had the Prime Minister go to Edmonton and tell a veteran that he's been asking more that he can give, while you're increasing taxes on Canadians, while there's a backlog of 70,000 cases plus for people who are being privately sponsored as refugees from places like northern Iraq? Do you think that it is fair, in your estimation, either of you, to even come to committee to ask us to spend that money? Like, is it fair? Is this something that you want Canadians to think is a fair thing?
And what I would tell Canadians is that when people come to this country seeking asylum, they are entitled under Canadian law and by an international agreement of which we are signatories.
But you don't get to have it both ways. You don't get to say.
But
you
they
don't,
are entitled to
no,
due process, and during that process,
You
we
don't-
are not going to. Their families,
You don't
Michelle,
get to
and
have it
there are people
both
out on the
fair.
street. We're not going to leave them out on the street
But
or in
they're-
the snow.
they have
We're going
reached
to
upstate
accommodate
New
them.
York, right?
I
Reasonable
would just
accommodation.
interrupt for one moment, please.
No, this is my time.
I know I'm the chair. You may be chair one day, but right now I am the chair, and I'm going to request that you do not speak over the witness when the witness is speaking, and that is out of respect for the interpreters who cannot interpret you. And we have a country which respects both official languages, and if we are going to maintain decorum in this committee and respect for both official languages, I will interrupt anyone who is speaking over someone when they're speaking.
Well, I think, Chair, frankly, I think a lot of Canadians can't interpret what's being said here. Because on one hand, they're saying that the Safe Third Country Agreement applies, that the United States is a safe country, people have reached a safe country. And on the other hand, they're asking us to spend $114 million on hotels and social welfare payments for illegal border crossers. That is a circle we can't square. You know, the reality is you keep spending this money. You keep coming to us unbudgeted, more and more. So don't you think that you're just asking Canadians to pay for your mistake, your joint and your Prime Minister's failure to close the loophole in the Safe Third Country Agreement, your hashtag Welcome to Canada mistake? Why are you asking Canadians to vote in favor of supporting your mistake?
If you like.
Mr. Chair, the preposterous idea that refugees leave their homes because of a tweet is an insult to those who seek protection. We have a system in Canada that determines who's a refugee and who isn't, and that's the system that we have. And
Thank
it's
you.
an
I would
independent
like the
system.
floor, Chair. Thank
And,
you.
And to suggest
Thank
that
you,
the
Chair. I would
conservatives
like the
actually cared
floor.
about refugees is laughable.
This is my time. I would like the chair, the floor, Chair. Thank you.
All committee members that the time that is here belongs to the committee, and the member has time to ask a question, and the witnesses have time to answer a question, because that is the way committees work. If the member would like to continue, may continue, but I ask that you allow the witnesses to answer out of
I
respect.
appreciate that the Liberals lately have been preventing strong women from speaking, but I will continue to speak. Thank you, Chair. Do you think that it is fair that Canadians accept you coming over and over to this committee asking for hundreds of millions of dollars to pay for hotels with no indefinite end? There's no end in sight. There's more people coming. On one hand, you say the Safe Third Country Agreement applies. On the other hand, you say the United States is not a safe third country. Let's pay for all of this. Why are you doing this? Like, make a decision one way or another. Don't just come to Canadians and say, you know what? Somebody in upstate New York is going to get priority access over veterans, increasing in carbon tax. Like, that's what you're asking us to do here. Why should Canadians look at you and say that anybody on this committee should support paying $114 million to pay for the hotels for illegal border crossers?
The families that are here who have made an asylum claim under law, Canadian law, are entitled to due process. And while that due process is taking place, we do provide, and working with municipalities in the provinces, temporary shelter so that they may have a roof over their head.
The reality is,
and most of the people that are coming
briefing
are,
that
in
you
fact,
gave us yesterday
families with children.
I don't gavel very often. I will gavel today. And I ask the member to again respect the witness. You've asked a question. Give them a chance to answer and do not speak over them. When they've finished, it is your time.
You know what, Mr. Chair, I'm kind of tired of being shut down by Liberals. I am.
That is also time. We now move to Ms. Kwan.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I still had time left, and you are shutting me down. Why are you shutting another woman down from speaking and asking questions? That's exactly what's happening here. And I challenge your ruling to move on to the next person, and I'd like
we now have a
recorded
challenge
vote.
to the chair.
Yes.
And I would rule that I am at the end. And I did warn the committee. I will tell you, I warned the committee a few weeks ago or months ago that if I felt the quorum was going, I would take the time and the clock would run while the members, and the members were all in the room at the time, that I would run the clock. And the clock is over 7 minutes. I have now been challenged on my ruling, which would be to go. I am now being challenged on my ruling that says that we have reached the end of Ms. Rempel's time to go to Ms. Kwan, and I would need to have a request for a recorded vote on whether or not you uphold my ruling.
Okay. Okay, so the motion is that the chair's decision be sustained. Ms. Rempel,
No.
Mr. Tilson,
No.
Mr. McGuire,
No.
Ms. Kwan,
Yes.
Mr. Ayub,
Oh, yes.
Mr. Whalen,
Yes.
Mr. Sarai,
Yes.
Mr. Tabara,
Yes.
Ms. Zaid.
Yes.
Thank you. We continue now with Ms. Kwan for 7 minutes.